Hi everyone, we've got a new moon with solar eclipse in Libra coming up on the 2nd or 3rd of October, depending on where you are in the world. Of course, we're in Libra season at the moment. So this is cardinal air energy. It's all about getting things started. But from this emphasis of striving for fairness, reciprocity, balance, and of course, divine justice. So as we look at this new moon, this is all about a new lunar cycle. It's a new beginning. It's a new start. So we are focusing on our intentions for this period ahead. And of course, what our manifestations might be in relation to this cycle and beyond. With the solar eclipse, this could bring further illumination and clarity, and certainly further awakenings. Now, a couple of weeks ago when we had the full moon with the lunar eclipse, that sort of opened up, in my view, a bit of a activation portal of illumination. But awakening was the word that came up for me at that time. And that's still the case now, because we are seeing things being revealed to us, externally being revealed to us, but also we are receiving greater insight from within. And remember, that connection we have with our intuition, with our inner compass, okay, that's our soul's guidance. That's that divine source energy that's running through us. And if we're becoming more and more connected to that, of course, we're going to receive further clarity that way as well. Take that if it resonates, leave it if it doesn't. But certainly, awakening, illumination, realization, clarity, I would say, are key themes and certainly have been for a while. Remember, we're in retrograde season as well. So we've got many big hitter planets that are in retrograde, which again is that process of going within and introspecting. So it's for our highest good. It may reveal some things that we need to look at, some things that we need to heal, some things that we need to focus on. That in itself is giving us clarity. So these eclipses and this eclipse portal, if you like to think of it like that, is offering us that opportunity. Now, of course, this is a new moon, new cycle, and cycle is a very appropriate word because the sun and the moon are going to be at 10 degrees of Libra, but they're not the only ones. Lilith is also there at 10 degrees. So we'll look at that, of course, when I pull up the chart. But there is this conjunction that's going on, of course, between the moon, the sun, and Lilith in the sign of Libra. This could be clarity coming from the shadows, coming from deep desires, but certainly things that maybe we've not wanted to look at before. And we're needing to now look at it because this eclipse is bringing it to the forefront. And with cycles, because of them all being at 10 degrees, in numerology, certainly from my perspective, that's all about cycles, okay? We know that we've needed to release certain things, and the full moon is great energy, lunar energy, to work with, to support us in releasing. We're becoming aware of what we might need to detach from, even if it's something like a negative thought belief or a pattern or something that might be coming up. But it could be, you know, connections. It could be moving from a place. It could be a number of things. So this clarity is coming up for us and cycles are closing out. So illumination, awakening, clarity could be coming in relation to those aspects. And relation is another appropriate word because Libra rules the 7th house in astrology. Okay, and it doesn't mean that your 7th house in your natal chart is Libra, because of course we're all unique. We're going to have different placements, but Libra is the ruler of the 7th house. And that represents relationships with people, places, and things. So when we look at this new moon happening with the solar eclipse and Lilith right there as well, let's look at our relationships with people. Are they fair? Are they balanced? Are they harmonious? Is there reciprocity? Is there some kind of divine justice that's needed? And are we looking at that from a sort of soul perspective with the sun there, an awakening to that, a realization to that? Are we looking at it from an emotional home perspective, the moon? Are we looking at it from shadow aspects coming up, Lilith? Okay. And we've got Mercury and Juno also in Libra as well, by the way. So this is bringing up communication where that might be needed to restore that balance, or perhaps where the air needs to be cleared in some way to bring about fairness and balance and, of course, divine justice. But Juno, commitments. So who are we committing to? Is it fair? Is it reciprocal? Is it balanced? Is it harmonious? That's just one aspect. Relationships with places. Do we have a harmonious and balanced relationship with a certain place, with a certain environment? Is there anything coming up that's saying we need to change things? And also relationships with things. And that's very vague because we have relationships with many things, including our own thoughts. So that could be, you know, how we are thinking and connecting with ourselves, that relationship with ourselves, a relationship with food, a relationship with projects that we're involved in, whatever it might be. So it's a very vague term, but Libra is all about relationships, partnerships, and we think of the scales of justice with Libra. This is about balancing that out. So this new moon with the solar eclipse could be illuminating and bringing forth clarity via emotions, the moon, via our soul, the sun, and via the shadows, Lilith. Okay, in order for us to understand what cycles need to be renewed, what cycles need to close out. Okay, so that is one aspect to look at with this. And also the opposite energy to Libra is Aries, and that's cardinal fire energy. So that's still that kind of motivational energy to get things started. And it's from a place of passion and deep-rooted motivation in a way. It's that fire that drives us. And the first house is all about the self, okay? So we've got focus on the self when it comes to our healing journey, because Chiron is in Aries, and our purpose, because the North Node is currently in Aries, so the direction in which we're heading, versus, and I say that loosely, versus what's going on in Libra at the moment, because we've really got to pay attention to our commitments, our relationships with people, places, things, and our communication, because of what I've just mentioned is going on in Libra. And this is what might be illuminated and revealed to us, externally to us, or of course within us from our intuition and from that sort of enlightenment that we're receiving from the divine. Okay, let's pull up the chart and I will show you some of the aspects that I was drawn to. So bear with me whilst I just bring this up on the screen. And I've also got the chart that just shows the transits against the UK as well to give some context. But of course, if you're looking at your own natal chart against, it's going to give you a more defined picture of what's going on for you. Okay, this is just collectively because it's looking at the event itself. Okay, right. So you'll see I have drawn many lines on here because there are many aspects going on, but these were the ones I was particularly drawn to intuitively and also guided towards. Okay, so there could be a key message in here for somebody watching. Now, there's a lot more going on, of course, as I say. Astrology has many layers, but let's look at what's going on in Libra. Before we do that, I mentioned it was on the 2nd or 3rd of October, depending on where you are in the world. So for us in the UK, it's actually happening on the 2nd of October, tomorrow, and it's at 19:49, so 7:49 p.m. British Summer Time, which we're still in, even though it really feels like it's changing seasons to autumn very, very quickly. Don't know if you're all finding that wherever you are. Of course, if you're in the other hemisphere, you're going to be finding that different because of different seasons. Anyway, I digress. But certainly things are shifting and changing. They are definitely shifting and changing. So let's look at Libra and all this stuff that's going on. Look at that. We have got the moon and the sun and Lilith at 10 degrees, as I mentioned. So they're in an exact conjunction degrees wise. that this is close, heightened energy when it comes to, yes, our intentions and what we're wanting to set for this new lunar cycle, but also what is being revealed to us via our shadows, and also any deep desires that we have to move forward in certain aspects where we want to establish fairness, reciprocity, balance, harmony, equal give and take. We've got the South Node in Libra, and that represents where we've come from, our past, okay? And it can be attributed to past lives. I've mentioned this before in other astrology reports. So the clarity that's coming forward may even relate to past life patterns, because attention is needed to close out certain cycles that relate to past lives, or even just simply in the past of this lifetime, in order to lay that foundation of fairness, because the direction we are heading is towards that sovereignty. So we're wanting to draw on where we've come from to move forward, but we need to establish that fairness at the base, if you like. So again, clarity might be coming up here from this solar eclipse, and some of it might have already come in because of the retrogrades that I've mentioned, and also because of the lunar eclipse that we had a couple of weeks ago. So you may already be aware of certain things where change is needed or where attention is needed in order to restore balance and fairness and reciprocity, etc. Remember the scales of justice. And the air energy is allowing for that movement. And I don't mean movement in terms of the flow that I would associate with water energy. This is more of that air movement, but because it's cardinal air, it allows us to get things going if we're striving from wanting fairness. And of course we want that in our reality. But we've also got Mercury there at 11 degrees. So, okay, he's not in an exact conjunction with them, but he's still very close. And so this is what I mentioned about cleaning up our communication and where we might need to express ourselves or communicate from a fair place, you know, being fair. We want to be fair, but also to restore balance and fairness. And there might be a difference in that, because if you think of that opposition energy to Aries that I mentioned, because obviously we've got the North Node there and we've got Chiron, okay, both of which retrograde. So Chiron in retrograde is that introspection on our healing journey. We're trying to understand how we can become more sovereign as part of our healing journey in order to understand where we are heading, the purpose, the path forward. But it's one of sovereignty and it's one of the self. So we need to focus on the self and what we want. So in that respect, cleaning up communication, yes, we might want to have fair communication, of course, but we also might need to speak up in order to put the message out there of the fairness that we deserve to receive in whatever that might be. Okay, so there is a difference in that. We might need to speak up from that sovereign place in order to establish fairness. But if we're also coming from that place of wanting fairness, so we're coming from a place of unconditional love because we want to achieve fairness, we're coming from that good place, but we also need to express ourselves. Okay, so that's where the communication comes into it, in my view. We've also got Juno there. Juno's at 18, and the vertex point, fate and destiny, is at 19 degrees. So this is about fated and destined commitments. You could even say soul contracts. Yes, I went there. So this is about the fairness that needs to be restored and balance needs to be achieved in relation to soul contracts. Could even be past life soul contracts because of the South Node being there in Libra. It could simply be what we're committing to right now. Okay, and that could be anything, committing to a job, committing to a person, committing to ourselves. Okay, it needs to be a fair, grounded place in that respect. And it's a very fated and destined time for that. The vertex point is there to remind us of that, but there is that conjunction although not exact, but close to Juno. So there's emphasis here on our commitments. And okay, Juno can represent love and marriage. I like to think of this asteroid as representing commitments in that way from a divine feminine place, because she is a divine feminine asteroid. But I don't want to just associate it purely to love. That is part of it. But we have commitments to other things. And certainly there is a lot to be said for contracts, and we want those to be fair. Of course, we want those to be fair. Read the small print, etc., and speak up if we need to restore balance in that way. That could be another message for somebody. But whatever we're committing to, whoever we're committing to, this is a fated and destined time for us to understand where fairness is needed, or where we already have fairness, because that might also be illuminated to us within our commitments, okay? In order to understand that, we might have to realize what those deep desires are from within, and also the shadow aspects that Lilith might be showing us, okay? Because she is more of that darker feminine energy. But light and dark coexist. That's the polarity of life, okay? But there's a lot going on in Libra, as you can see. A lot. And I've mentioned about Chiron in Aries and the North Node. So yeah, we want things to be fair and equal, reciprocal, in order to move forward, pursue our path, head in the direction where we're going, which is sovereignty. And we need to believe in ourselves in order to do that. And when we do believe in ourselves from that sovereign place, we know what's fair and what's not fair. Okay? So very pivotal moment, especially because of the vertex point being there as well in relation to commitments. That's what it feels like to me, and soul contracts. Okay? So there's a lot going on in Libra. And with the sun, moon, and Lilith, okay, at the point of this eclipse, there are some things to mention here. First of all, we have got a sextile that is going to Pallas in Sagittarius. So this is the asteroid Pallas Athena, also divine feminine energy. So the sextile is harmonious in astrology. And there is a square, and hopefully you can see it in a different color on your screen. There is a square that is going across to Mars in Cancer. Okay, and that's a masculine energy in a feminine sign. So that can be quite uncomfortable for a start, but also nurturing, depending on how you look at it and depending on what else is going on. And that square is there with the sun, moon, and Lilith, but also with Juno. So I've just mentioned about commitments and soul contracts. There could be something here when you're thinking of a soul contract. You could actually attribute this to some resistance energy or challenging energy when it comes to the masculine side of a commitment or a contract. It can also be saying that, you know, we want to take action because that's the masculine drive within us. Okay, Mars represents that masculine essence within us. And, you know, we want to take action on certain things. This is about a new moon. We're wanting to set intentions and manifest. So yes, okay, manifestations, creation is more the divine feminine essence, but we want to take action. That's how it balances out. However, it could be challenging because of the shadow aspects coming up, and also where we are committing to certain things. So are we committing to the right things? Are we committing to the right people? And the Cancerian energy is softening the Mars energy, almost like, this is what it feels like, kind of hold your horses, let's just slow down a bit and look at this. Okay, let's look at this, Mars. What is it that you're wanting to commit to? And or what are you committing to? Who are you committing to? Where are you taking action in the direction of? Is it fair? Is it balanced? Is it reciprocal? And there could be some challenge to that, because of course there's a lot of feminine energy going on there in Libra, and Mars is in a feminine sign. So there is a slowing down of a kind of nurturing of the masculine who wants to get things going. The Libra energy is cardinal and wants to get things going, but from a place of fairness. So we need to understand there might be some resistance there. Now, with the sextile to Pallas, Okay, that's about, you know, that Athena energy, which is warrior spirit energy, warrior goddess. So think of God, goddess energy, you know, regardless of gender, but it is goddess energy. And this is about, in Sagittarius, you know, that discovery of what we are willing to fight for and what we want to fight for. So even though there might be resistance in the actual taking the action, because we need to slow down and look at what we're actually doing with what we're committing to, and where we need to speak up, and what the shadow aspects are revealing to us, and what this whole solar eclipse is revealing to us. But also, what have we learnt about what we want to fight for? What are we willing to fight for here? And that's a more harmonious aspect going on. So this is all about the power of discovery. And again, through clarity, illumination, revelation, we discover things, don't we? So that's how the new moon with this solar eclipse is going to help us move forward in the direction of what we want to fight for in our own reality. Okay. If we look at some other things going on, you'll notice there is also this this square that's going to Ceres, okay? And Ceres is in Capricorn, so that's also divine feminine energy in Saturn's home. So that when you think of it with the opposite energy of like Mars, a very masculine energy being in a feminine sign, and then we've got Ceres, feminine energy in a very masculine sign, or a very masculine energy, because Saturn is, you know, I just think of that as very masculine energy. But it's more harsh in that way, but there is earth energy there, so it is grounded, and there is a reality aspect to this. So okay, we need to slow down in terms of taking action, because we need to look at these things that are being revealed to us, and also acknowledge the discovery of what it is we want to fight for. Okay, we've just established that. How that's going to allow our physical reality to expand is a bit uncertain. So that can provide this challenging energy with this square. We're wanting to ground things in and plant the seeds for what we're wanting, but it might feel challenging because we've got to slow down and understand what it actually is we're committing to in the first place. Is it fair? Is it balanced? Are we receiving that back? In our commitments, in our relationships with people, places, things. Okay. The other square that's going on is Vesta, who is in Virgo, with Jupiter, okay, who's in Gemini, and who will be soon going into retrograde also, joining the other planets that are in retrograde. But Vesta is in sextile to Mars, so the square is the challenge and the sextile is more harmonious. So, okay, Vesta, the sacred flame. What is that sacred flame to us? What inspires us? You know, what is our creative muse in that way? And maybe when we're looking at, you know, what we're trying to manifest, we're trying to understand what that is for us. It's also divine feminine energy. So you see there's a pattern here, and it really makes me feel like this is about what we're wanting to create for ourselves, what we want to birth into reality. But Vesta in Virgo, okay, the Virgo energy is wanting a bit of organization, if you like, and also wanting to clean things up in that way. So Vesta can work in harmony here with the sextile with Mars, because Mars wants to take action but needs to slow down a bit and just look at what does need to be cleaned up here. What is it that is inspiring us in relation to what we're wanting? So when we look at, you know, the Vesta energy of that inspiration, okay, if you look at it like that, and then Pallas Athena in Sag, discovering what we're willing to fight for, okay, the solar eclipse could be revealing that to us because of the sextile that is going from the sun, the moon, Lilith to Pallas. And it might be things that we didn't even realize that's what we wanted to fight for. That could be the revelation in itself. But Vesta, that inspiration, is inspiring that masculine energy to almost be fueled to take the action when it's the right time. Okay, and that's going to be different for everybody. Okay, and energy is fluid. We have the gift of free will in this reality. So it's not going to be a specific time frame for people as to when we take action. This is about aligning with energy and working with the energy and what it's trying to show us. But the square to Jupiter is almost saying to me that, okay, even though that inspiration can almost teach Mars, the masculine essence, where to take action and, you know, with whom, with what to take action. Jupiter, in order for that expansion that Jupiter can bring, and that luck and fortune as well, there's almost this message of needing to be open-minded about how this can happen, and to perhaps apply a bit of logic because of the Gemini energy, and maybe needing to look at something from, you know, a couple of perspectives, or even just taking that wider perspective, because, you know, Jupiter rules Sagittarius, and that is all about that bigger perspective. There is a spiritual link to Jupiter as well. So when we look at that inspiration, the Vesta energy, the sacred flame, that sacred flame could be coming simply and purely from that soul essence within, because that's going to guide us in terms of what we're willing to fight for, what we want to commit to, where we need to speak up, and how we want things to balance out, where we need to take the action. So there is a need to maybe apply some logic and certainly be open-minded as to how our manifestations are going to materialize, because we can't control that, okay? And even though the Virgo energy with Vesta wants to be in control, there is this need to actually be more open-minded and just to surrender more to that. Because of all these revelations, we need to surrender to what's coming forward, because it's only then that we can understand where we need to take the action and what we need to do. If we haven't got the clarity, we're not going to know, are we? So all of this could be very, very kind of sudden awakenings, sudden clarity, sudden aha moments, sudden realizations. But it's for our highest good, because without that, how do we know? Okay. And this is all about restoring balance. So it's all in the name of divine justice. Okay. Now, let's get on to this grand trine. So the triangle that you can see there is made up of trines here, and there are a couple of grand trines that are formed. Now, Saturn in Pisces, currently in retrograde, and Mars in Cancer are both part of these. But what we have over here is we have the Scorpio energy. We've got Venus in Scorpio, and we've got Poseidon in Scorpio. Okay, so they both meet with Saturn and Mars, respectively, for the grand trines, and it's a grand water trine. Okay, so this is beautiful, actually, because I mentioned about Mars being in Cancer and that softening the masculine energy. Well, we've got Venus in Scorpio, which is going deep in the feminine side. So there is a balancing out of the masculine and feminine. And this is about the lessons that are being learned through Saturn's teachings. And Saturn is, of course, you know, a taskmaster and doesn't mess around and wants us to get into alignment with our spiritual truth, because he's in Pisces at the moment. And in retrograde, heavy, deep, intense introspection of what it is we need to do. So, yeah, that's working nicely with Mars, because Saturn is giving Mars the green light to do, but there is that challenging energy, as I mentioned, with the square that's going to Juno, and also the moon, the sun, and Lilith. So yes, Saturn wants us to take action on certain things, but first of all, we do need to learn our lesson and understand what is fair and reciprocal when it comes to the shadow aspects that are coming up, and also the commitments that we're making. So that's kind of under the microscope of this solar eclipse that Saturn is also showing us, but is kind of saying to Mars, look, you know, this is a water trine. So there is flow here, because actually Saturn is in Pisces, which is the mutable energy. But there is just that resistance. We need to first receive that inspiration as well from the Vesta creative muse, and to understand what it really is that sparks that flame within. Okay, so it all works hand in hand here. But Saturn is also in trine, of course, to Venus and Poseidon. So, you know, Saturn wants us to shake the waters up a bit with that Poseidon energy and to go deep in our emotions, and also wants the feminine to go deep. So he wants the masculine to receive a bit of nurturing, but to also, yes, take the action when it's time to do so after learning the lessons, but also wants the feminine to go deep. When we look at our investment of the Venus energy, who or what are we giving our heart energy to? Okay, and our resources, our time, our attention, our love, our money, our energy, if I haven't said that already. So who are we giving that to? What are we giving that to? Okay, it's going deep with that. So Saturn's asking us to go deep when it comes to where we are investing that energy, wants us to shake up the waters, also wants Mars to be nurtured in that way, wants the masculine energy to be nurtured and be ready to take action when that clarity is received and when lessons have been learned. But also, you know, because Mars and Venus are connected in a trine as well, that is the masculine and feminine working with each other when it comes to this. So this is, of course, within us, but it could be happening in external connections. When we look back at the soul contracts, the fact that Libra rules the 7th house of relationships, okay, and we've got the South Node there in Libra. This could relate to soul contracts with past life soulmates and the masculine energy and the feminine energy, both going deep and nurturing in order to understand what action needs to be taken, where fairness needs to be restored, and the direction in which we're heading in that way when we're looking at our investments and the action that we want to take. So we've got that, that's in harmony with Saturn. So that's positive energy. If we can align with that, that is assisting Saturn's teachings in that way, because it means that we are learning the lessons, we are understanding what's going on by going deep, by nurturing ourselves and learning where fairness is needed and where reciprocity is needed. And that's getting us in alignment with our spiritual truth. Of course, Neptune is in Pisces and is also retrograde. So there could be downloads and inspiration coming through our intuition in relation to all of this. That could be where the clarity is coming through, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video. Okay, so take it as it resonates. But there is opposition energy between Saturn and Vesta. So even though I was harping on about the sacred flame energy and that creative inspiration and how that is working nicely with Mars, there is opposition energy to Saturn. And what I feel with this, because it's Pisces Virgo, that is about, and I've said this numerous times before as well, about the 3D versus the 5D. So we need to understand the lessons and we need to understand them on a soul level, but also in a real world experience as well, because we are here interacting in this real world experience. We want to be grounded, but we also want to flow. And we want to be inspired, but we also want to do. So it's trying to find the balance between the two energies there and how they can work together. Because, of course, yes, the Virgo energy wants to be very organized and planned, and that's that. Saturn likes rules, but it's obviously in Pisces, and is teaching us valuable lessons at the moment. One of which could be with this opposition energy, where there is resistance to accepting what or who our sacred flame actually is. I've gone there with that one as well. And that actually just came through. So I feel that's a channeled message for somebody. But it's opposition energy. So it's like a push-pull. It's almost like, do I really want to accept this? Well, the solar eclipse might actually just show you this, and there needs to be an acceptance. But push-pull energy is just that kind of uncomfortable back and forth, because, you know, it's understanding on a soul level and it's understanding in a real world level what's going on. Okay, and I could go deeper on that, but I won't on this occasion. So so there you go, there you have it. That's the new moon solar eclipse in Libra. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to very quickly show you the chart against the UK's chart to give context on the house systems. Okay, it's going to be different if you've got your own natal chart and even different countries. But the actual new moon is happening in the 4th house. Okay, there's a lot going on in the 4th house. That's why it's spread out in that way. But that's where the Libra energy is, and there's a bit of Scorpio there as well. Venus is also there. But that's about, you know, foundations. So it can also be family related as well, but it is the Cancerian home. So, and I say home, it is like the home, but think of your soul as the home, your foundation, and we want that fairness within the foundations here. So that's where this solar eclipse is happening. Okay, and where all of this fate and destiny is coming up with commitments, contracts, where we need to speak up, past life stuff we might need to look at, shadow aspects, deep desires, etc. That's in the 4th house. And the opposite house to that is the 10th house. Okay, and look at this. We have got Chiron in retrograde, as we know, in Aries. So that's our healing journey when it comes to our sovereignty, on top of the UK's natal sun. So that is the soul essence. When you think of the UK as a collective, that is the soul essence. If this was an individual's chart, that is your natal sun, that is your soul essence. Okay, so there is something profoundly being healed when it comes to the soul of the UK when we look at sovereignty, and this is in the 10th house of inner authority and work. Okay, so this could be relating to where we might have given our power away. Okay, so where might we have had our inner authority challenged, and where our sovereignty is certainly being called into question, because this is part of our healing journey here with Chiron there. So it could relate to worth and values, because the UK's natal Chiron is in Taurus, only just. So, you know, this could be about standing up for ourselves here when we know and believe things to be unfair, unjust, all of that Libra energy, but as it relates to our sovereignty, that's how the opposition energy can work for us if we balance it out in that way. But again, there might be resistance to accepting what we know is not fair and what we know has been challenging our sovereignty, but we don't want to do anything about it. Resistance energy. Okay, but the revelations could be coming up about that and where that might be happening as a collective. Okay, and then we've got the Saturn opposition energy with Vesta. Vesta is just there in the 3rd house of expression, and Saturn is in the 9th house of learning and discovery, but also, you know, the teaching house, I suppose, and he is teaching us. So what he's teaching us is perhaps challenging our expression, especially when it comes to our sacred flame energy. And I was just saying that, you know, it could be this revelation of, well, actually, that is your sacred flame. That is what inspires you. Have you accepted that? Have you only just realized that? Is that sudden clarity, sudden inspiration for you? You know, Saturn teaching in that way, but in a rather direct way. And there could be resistance to that because of the push-pull opposition. And the other thing I just wanted to mention was about Mars, because we know Mars is in the mix there. And there is a conjunction with the UK's natal Pluto, 2 degrees difference, but still close enough, in the 12th house. So in the subconscious, in that spiritual, ethereal realm, we have got Pluto, that deep transformation, and Mars there. So we're wanting to take action as a collective, you know, think of it as a collective, in order to profoundly transform things that are of a, if you think of like a subconscious nature, but from a spiritual perspective. So this could actually be a marker point of a profound spiritual awakening that is going to profoundly transform the subconscious of the collective, that's going to be inspired by the action we want to take, but vice versa. That could actually inspire the action that we want to take. Okay, so again, all this clarity might be coming up to show us all of this. What I haven't marked up, but I've just actually looked at here, and I was drawn to the 7-7, to be honest with you, in the 5th house here, is that Pallas is actually on top of the UK's natal Saturn. So I was mentioning about Pallas fighting for what we want. Well, fighting for rules and boundaries, okay, that align with us coming from a place of joy and creative expression and love, 5th house. Okay, Saturn being there might not be the easiest place in the 5th house, because it's more softer and creative, and of course when you think of it being the house of love, it's kind of, you know, is that really where Saturn should be? But Saturn is obviously teaching us something. There is this I suppose there is this innate ability to be quite sort of business focused when it comes to creative expression, artistic expression, the things that we want to produce, you know, as a nation, if you look at it like that. But with Pallas there, it's like, okay, so what have we learned from all this? What have we discovered on this journey? And what are we willing to fight for? Okay, and you know, in the opposite 11th house, we have got Uranus there in retrograde. Where's change needed in our connections with other people? So what are we willing to fight for when it comes to what we want to express from a creative perspective and from a place of the heart chakra? And how does that relate to our connections with others when change is needed from a place of worth and value? And also, you know, where expansion is needed in our connections with others. So yes, looking at all of that as the bigger picture. But that is just to give you a bit of an idea of how that applies to the house system when looking at the events of the new moon solar eclipse in Libra against the UK's natal chart. Okay, right, let's pull some cards. Of course, I will timestamp all of this as well, in case you want to jump straight to the cards now. Because it's a new moon, I've got the Moonology manifestation deck. Okay, I've also got Wisdom of the Oracle and Queen of the Moon. So let's see what we've got as just some additional messages for this new moon solar eclipse in Libra. For the collective, what does the collective need to know, please, for this new moon and solar eclipse? There we go. Thank you. Oh, I was just talking about worth, wasn't I? There we go. Know your worth. Okay. And on the bottom, we have got believe in your good luck. So there is something here about us needing to believe in ourselves when it comes to that action we want to take, but also from that nurturing energy of what we're wanting to create from the feminine aspect as well. But knowing our worth. So what is going to be revealed to us is perhaps where we've maybe not known our worth in situations that haven't been fair, because remember the Libra energy. Okay, but we need to understand that we are capable of whatever we kind of set our focus towards. We're very powerful and we can create what we want, but a lot of that has to do with belief and experiences and connections and just societal kind of conditioning and patterns can really sort of, I say, mess with things. They can influence things and not always in a good way. So it's being able to use like our discernment with that, but knowing our worth and believing that we can achieve good luck is of course part of it. And that might also be a bit of a foreshadowing to the Jupiter retrograde that's coming up. I think it's on the 9th of October. So, because that's going to be deep introspection, you know, where that expansion is needed, can happen, but also in terms of the luck and fortune that we are worthy of. We need to believe we're worthy of it. Let's go with the Queen of the Moon then. Additional messages, please, for this new moon solar eclipse for the collective. Do you know what? That's so funny. That is... There's no such thing as coincidence. No such thing as coincidence. As I was shuffling that, sorry, I feel there's another one. Another two, actually. That really was like a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And what I was drawn to immediately in my mind's eye, my third eye was like on the astrology chart with the 10, 10, 10. Well, 1, 1, 1. Okay, that's when we think of alignment as well, but that adds up to 3, and it's almost like counting the 3 of them there, the moon, the sun, Lilith, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, but also taking steps in a rhythmic way to achieve what we want. Okay, think of stepping stones in that way. That might mean something for somebody out there. We've got attraction. Okay, think of the law of attraction there. Look at this. Realization, absolutely. Then we've got balance. Yes, absolutely. I knew there was more that wanted to come out. And assessing, that's that bigger picture I was talking about. So yeah, we need to look at something from a bigger and higher perspective. Okay, sometimes when we remove ourselves from the situation, even through a meditation, you know, we're actually seeing the situation, because when we're in it, sometimes that clarity can't come forward. So by almost separating ourselves from that to receive the clarity, setting the intentions to receive the clarity, that realization could be coming in through the solar eclipse and this new moon, this potent energy. Okay, and that is what is going to provide that portal, okay, for you to then step through, metaphorically speaking, in terms of, you know, knowing that direction in which you're heading because of receiving that clarity. But we often need to just take ourselves out of it to see things for, you know, what's actually going on. And of course, yes, a reminder of that Libra energy with the balance that we're wanting and the law of attraction. So that goes back to believing in our worth as well. So believing we're worthy of attracting what it is that we desire in our reality, and that we can achieve it. Okay. It's interesting because on the bottom there is hunger and there is fear, and underneath that, woo, extremes. So yeah, and I was reminded about this the other day. Underneath that is sovereignty, and underneath that is the masculine. Sorry, I could keep going, but yeah, I was reminded about this the other day with the Lilith energy, because, you know, I very much feel there are shadow aspects that come up, but also deep desires as well. So it depends on what's going on. But there can also be this kind of hunger, this yearning, and that could be what's going on as well. But there might be fears around accepting what's coming up and being revealed in that way, the clarity coming through. Let's go with Wisdom of the Oracle and see what additional messages we have for the collective. Power of unconditional love and divine source energy. Right, we've got by the book. That feels very Saturnian. Chaos and conflict. Unfinished symphony, cycles. A change in the wind. Wow, on the bottom, so we've got community and we've got between worlds. You might feel like this. I know I felt like this for quite a while, but then I am a Pisces with a lot of Virgo placements, and anyone that resonates with that is going to know exactly what I mean when I say that and when you look at that image, because that is literally like being in two different worlds. That is the 3D versus the 5D, of course, but here it feels like, you know, we're straddling two different realities, almost like we've got one foot still in the past and we've got one foot going towards the future. And notice the flamingo has a crown on, so that's the direction of sovereignty. But being between worlds, yes, we might just need to do that. And I think back to the astrology and that kind of pause moment of Mars. Yes, action needs to be taken, and yes, we can work with that inspiration. But we need to understand, first of all, where fairness needs to be restored and what we might need to do to restore it. So it's almost like a hold point of being between worlds whilst we receive that clarity. Okay, striving for fairness. And that is what is on the front of this box. That is the scales of justice. But community, okay, this could be being revealed within your own communities, friendship groups, work, soul tribe, okay, however that might be. Family even as well, family, friends. But a change is coming. And this solar eclipse is going to show us things, and it's going to show us where things need to be finished. It's also going to show us where things are left unfinished for a reason. So there's still things to be done. And again, you know, closing out karma, healing, etc. Chaos and conflict is what we've been experiencing, but also because of the change that is coming and the changes that have been happening already within our own lives. This is about accepting that we need to maybe go through a bit of that, even if it's sort of inner chaos and conflict, because think of that Poseidon energy of shaking up the waters, metaphorically speaking, in order to understand, to realize. So we need to feel it in order to then move forward. Because again, if we don't feel the chaos and conflict, how are we going to then know that we need to make a change? And by the book, yes, that's kind of like following the rules. But I would say with this, we need to set our own rules. We need to be going by our own book. And not just following for the sake of following. This is about stepping away from this, okay? Because that might be what's causing the chaos and conflict. We need to be individual, and that's why things need to close out, but we need to be shown what it is. And if things aren't meant to close out just now, there's a reason for it. There might be more lessons to learn, okay? That's what's going on at the moment with Saturn, and a change in the wind. So we know change is here. But let's break away from this and be individual. I understand that we are kind of straddling the two worlds, but we need to receive that insight in order to move forward first and foremost. Okay. And I've just drawn to this because it's on the top there. Trust the universe. The universe will show us. The universe will show us. There are signs everywhere. And when you're open to those signs, you receive more of them. And that is, again, that alignment with that energy. And where's that other card? The assessing, you know? So actually being open to seeing things and to want to experience the situation for what it is and to understand what's going on allows you to be open. And with that law of attraction, it's almost like, okay, I'm aware that clarity might be coming up in these certain situations. It might feel a bit uncomfortable, but I need to be aware of it in order to then restore balance and move forward. Okay. But apply it to your own situation, if it even resonates at all with you, because some people still haven't gone through a spiritual awakening. So it might resonate with you. It might not. Okay. Take it as it resonates. Leave it if it doesn't. That's absolutely fine. But there might be messages in here for some of you. All I will say is, you know, clarity felt like a key word. Illumination, awakening, because that's come through from when I did the previous full moon with lunar eclipse reading. There's definitely this shift happening, and it's more towards this divine justice. So we're needing to understand all of this to restore balance and to actually receive and experience divine justice. Okay. I'll leave it there. I'm sending you love and blessings, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Bye for now.